You and I talk about love quite a lot on the show. We talk about marriage, we talk about family, and we talk about all the nitty gritties. We've even had a conversation about how we would, vision our dream wedding. And that's the thing about us young people. We talk about the nice things. We talk about the dress we want to wear, the music we want to, listen to, the first dance. We talk about the type of outfits we want our partner to be wearing, how we want to walk down the aisle. But we don't talk about the nitty gritties that actually go into an actual marriage. And tonight we're going to be doing that with my guest. Chomi! We are joined by an exceptional woman. She's a legal practitioner, a governance leader, a policy advocate, and a champion for justice. Her name is Njiramanda Mbewe-Boatey, and she's the founder and managing attorney of Mbewe Legal Practice, a citizen-owned, female-led law firm that has become respected in the governance as well as family law, labor law, and institutional accountability. With more than 13 years of experience, she's built such an impressive career at the intersection of law, leadership, and social impact. She currently serves as the commissioner at the National Gender Commission, vice chairperson of the National Arts Commission of Botswana, where she chairs the Audit and Risk Committee. She's also the chairperson of Bonela and a patron of Mosadi Kopili. Her influence extends far beyond Botswana's borders, and tonight we get to pick into her beautiful big brain and learn more about what it means to be married in community of property as well as out of community of property. Good evening, Njira. Welcome to the show.
Good evening, Kat. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
I'm high on Kat. I'm very high on Kat right now.
That's what I ordered. You walked in. I love that.
Yeah.
Njira, I think you've got such beautiful titles under your belt, but you're just so much fun. You're so easy to talk to. How are you winging this life thing and also, practicing law at the same time?
Being authentic, being myself, not seeking validation, and living for purpose more than anything. Nothing else, not money, not everything else that comes with obviously a purposeful life. But being true to myself, because at the end of the day, I don't think I owe anyone any explanations about anything. But of course, I'm just trying to be impactful. Impact is very important for me. And service, being selfless, losing yourself in the pursuit of serving others.
I absolutely love that. It's giving a purpose over passion.
Absolutely.
It's giving calling over comfort. Yes. Now let's get into tonight's conversation. What exactly do we mean when we say somebody is married in community of property?
Yes. So one of my favorite topics. Been practicing for 14 years, like you said, seen marriages, seen divorces. And I think one thing that we're not getting is what it is, that marriage is actually a sui generis contract. Sui generis in Latin means it's unique, it's one of its kind. It's the only contract, marriage is the only contract, Kat, that you enter into where you find yourself having rights, responsibilities, which you actually did not sign up for. I mean, when you look at other commercial contracts, you would have a termination clause that says, if we have a breach, I leave within this period. But with marriage, if there is a breach of some sort, or an irretrievable breakdown of some sort, then there's a process in which you have to terminate it, and that's the process of going to the High Court and having the divorce. And this is where those issues arise, the issues of the marital regime. Are we in or out? It comes from the Roman Empire. From the Roman Empire, it made its way into Botswana through Roman Dutch law, because that's what we practice. And before we reach this point where we are actually speaking about in and out, universal partnerships, a customary marriage, and what brings out of, we need to understand that there was the Marital Powers Act. The Roman Empire was about men and power, and also about property, acquisition of property. And so they framed it in that way. And then there was the Marital Powers Act, which then abolishes that to say, as a man, you shouldn't be the only one who amasses property and owns property. Women now can also do that, hence our abolition only recently in 2004. And so when we speak of in community of property or out of community of property, we are speaking of what we would say we've mixed business with pleasure. Okay. Right? And they say don't mix business with pleasure. But that's what a marriage is, right? We are not talking about romance. We are talking about economics. we're talking about power, we're talking about risk, we're talking about property. That is what marital regimes really are. And so we get to the first one, in community of property. But before we go into that, what I have seen over the years is that one person, Kat meets someone, Kat has a house, this person has a dream. You build an empire. And the marriage, you get married, you build an empire, and the marriage now ends. And then the question becomes, then what? We often ask this question at that point when the empire has been built. This is when we're trying to understand what the consequences of our marital regime are. Some don't even know what sort of marital regime they're in. And that is wrong and that is late. And so in community would mean that we bring our assets together. It's asset and liability sharing. Well, what I found you with, whatever you came with, if you came from a house which from a silver spoon, right? And if I'm coming from a disadvantaged background, we come together, we pull in our assets and liabilities. And if we're divorcing, we're sharing the assets and the liabilities. And then if it's out, what you come with and is in your name remains in your name if it's an asset or a liability. The same would apply with me. But then there are other things also. One, there is universal partnership. The recognition of my contribution to what you have acquired. Remember, you came with a house. I came with a dream. My dream then brings us the empire. And we're married out of community of property. And you want to live with everything attached to the empire because the house was in your name. But then I had contributed either my time, my expertise, my skill to us acquiring that. And so at that point, when we're having the division of the estate, how are we dividing it? Are we going to say in, out, or are we going to look at the level of contribution I've built? We also need to talk about customary marriages. Different customs, you marry differently, different things are applied, whether you're in or out, it's automatic in or automatic out. I know France is automatic in, but you don't bring into the marriage what was yours prior to the marriage. With Morocco, Hakimi case, it's actually automatically out. And if we want to then share, then we have to put it in writing. And if I didn't contribute to you acquiring what you got, if you're the footballer and you're wealthy, then I don't get anything out. So customary marriages as well. Also understanding that a customary marriage allows you to have more than one wife. But in a civil marriage, only one, because that would be bigamy, the offense of bigamy. So there are a lot of implications, and we enter these contracts without understanding. The thing about marriage as well is there will be an effect at death. Whether you are married in or out of community of property has a bearing at death. How are we dividing assets? Is it 50-50? And then, or is it just dividing the whole amount with the children? Succession as well, where is what going where? Inheritance, you come in with an inherited property. It forms part of the joint estate if you're in. Do you have an antenuptial contract? That is, are we leaving some things out of the marital regime? So it's a beautiful conversation. There's a lot, and we're just so happy you were talking about the dresses, the decor, the cake. Well, seems to be more than that.
There really is more than meets the eye, because as you're talking now, I'm looking at it from a perspective that I never thought of before. And you mentioned something so beautiful. One partner will come with the money, they'll come with the house, they'll come with the cars, and I'll come in with the dream, but my dream will still be realized and it will still be fulfilled. How do different marriage regimes within the law protect the person that came with the dream, but also contributed to the fruitfulness of the marriage?
We're looking at fairness. Firstly, we're going to apply the regime itself. So if you're out of community of property, then it's going to be clear. Everyone is walking away with what they built or what is in their name. And these days, it seems there are a lot of misconceptions. The first one is that if you're married out of community of property, then it's not a marriage. We always seem to assume a real marriage is in community of property. And then there's also issues now that we're become a materialistic society. Are we really getting married for marriage or love? Or are we getting married for property? I may have the house, you may have the dream, but at the point of marriage, when we're discussing the marital regime we're entering into, what is assisting us make that decision? Am I looking at you and saying, well, I love her brain and it looks like her brain is actually going to take us somewhere, and if I married her in community of property, then I'm probably going to walk out of this with a larger stake than I came in. So there's that too. There are a lot of elements, and this is why it is very important that before you actually get married, you do your counseling, your premarital counseling, but you also have to have the legal aspect of it, where you as an individual consult your attorney on the consequences, the effects of the marriage or the marital regime, and together as well to say, look, you seem to be someone who has a lot of risk. You're a tenderpreneur. People who mostly do tenders, they make it big sometimes and they lose. The risk is high as well. True. And I'm trying to build something, or we're trying to build something for the children. What is the best marital regime under the circumstances? Would it be in or out? But then what happens is that sometimes even when we have these conversations from a genuine and honest perspective, along the way things change. Resentment happens. I thought you were a security guard, and I'm just going to give these examples loosely, not to demean. I thought you were a security guard and I'm an engineer, and automatically I assume I'm going to be the one who's going to make the money. But then you get the tender, which is a multi-billion pula security tender, and now there's resentment that the person may have thought was not actually going to make it in the marriage makes it, and now the marriage has ended, and then it becomes, well, we're married in, I want half of what you have, and it becomes you just want half because I've made it. You didn't really believe.
Yes.
Exactly. So there are a lot of factors that come in. So back to what I said, we're mixing business with pleasure, which may be all right, but let's understand the dynamics from the outset rather than later on, because it becomes really ugly. The divorce process itself, children are affected, debtors are affected. If we're married in community of property and I owe someone, and you're my spouse, that's your debt as well. Yes.
Is this a debt you acquired before meeting me? Or during?
In community of property, remember, before and during the marriage, everything becomes one. So whether you are there or not is neither here nor there. We are stuck to the hip.
I thought that those were misconceptions and myths from social media. I did not think that that's true. So even if, let's say, we're married in community of property and things don't go well for my partner or myself, and I end up finding myself in a huge lump sum of debt, is there no way that my spouse can protect themselves within the marriage from my debt?
So the way you can protect property before you get married in community is by having an antenuptial contract. This is where you put your assets aside, and those assets will not be touched at a point where we are divorcing if you're married in community of property and there is a debt. So that's how you protect those assets. So you define to say, these ones you don't touch. I inherited this from my mother. It won't form part of the joint estate. There's also post-nuptials where even after you're married, you're allowed to put things out. Then there's change of marital regimes as well. You're allowed to change. If you're seeing that where you're headed, well, the effect is not to run away from debts or responsibilities, but if you're seeing the risk, it would be safer and better to say, we got married in, we are now in a situation where there's a lot of risk facing us, we don't owe anyone at this point, let's change the marital regime.
So in light of this chat, Njira, what would your advice be to someone like myself who does want to get married, is absolutely successful, is heading for greatness, but also needs to be realistic and practical when it comes to life?
Different circumstances, different legal advice, different circumstances, right? So someone like you I'd advise you differently depending on what the outcome is, what you want out of your marriage or out of your property. Are you trying to leave a legacy, or are you trying to build together? It really depends on first you as an individual and then as a couple. Remember, even as you're a couple, you're individuals, and we all have different dreams and aspirations, and we should be allowed to realize them in the concept of the two become one, but you're still one, right, at some point. So I think my advice really for people is you need to the same way you do your daily doctor check-ins and checkups to see if anything is wrong, you need to check in with your attorney to say, this is where I am, this is what I want to do. Wills are also very important. The Wills Act says you can have a will from the age of 16. You're still a minor, but that's how important property is, and that's how our country views property as essential, that even at the age of 16, when you're still a minor, you can actually have a will, and that's how you protect also assets. And then are we in or are we out, depending on who's doing what, where is the risk, what do I want to do, what am I leaving out, is it an antenuptial contract? These are important. Should I die, if something happens to me, God forbid, where do things go and how? Because succession also tells us that when you are not here, we are going to have to make that decision for you if you haven't decided it for yourself in a will. But I think this whole back and forth is based on the fact that, are we really getting married for the right reasons? Are we getting married because we're in love, or are we getting married because of property? Why is this such a big, people were married before us for many years right? Customarily, it's all of a big topic.
It's a big conversation.
Yes.
And I think it's because nobody wants to feel used. I think there's nothing as painful as thinking that Mutoki Mutuak and Njira is my woman. We are building together. We are, headed for the stars together. And the reasons behind you marrying me were never genuine, and it was never love.
It's so difficult to know what the reason would be, because what you would think is not a contribution would actually be a contribution. The words of affirmations I tell you before you go for your interview and you get the job have a lot to do with everything.
Those prayers.
Yeah, exactly. The fact that if we have children, I'm at home and I'm looking after the children, I'm cleaning, I'm cooking, and we haven't hired a household help, I'm saving you money and you're working, right? So, and also I think we cannot run away from the fact, I spoke about the Marital Powers Act. We can't run away from the fact of patriarchy. Patriarchy does have a role to play, because at some point men had the advantage of owning property while we didn't, and now we are free from that. Now we can own, and now the tensions are happening, right? Kat now has everything and she's just very powerful, and I'm feeling emasculated, and if it means she doesn't want to marry me in community of property, she doesn't really love me, she thinks I want her for a property, when I really actually do love her. There are a lot of things at play currently, and it shows you how times evolve and how laws evolve, and how back then maybe in community may have been the best thing, and maybe it's not now, or maybe it may be now for two people who really genuinely want to grow together in every sense of growing together, not just in the assets but in the contribution as well, in terms of time, contribution, skill, money. So I think we really need to understand exactly the why from the outset, and then the how, and how are we going to achieve that. And then we can protect, if you're an individual, we protect your portion if you're in, or if everything is yours in your names, we protect. You protect yourself from your spouse if your spouse is reckless and takes big risks. But you know what they say about risks as well, the bigger the risk, the bigger
the bigger the reward.
Yeah, so we're not going to give you your cake. You won't have your cake and eat it too. You really have to make that decision, and it needs to be an informed decision, where you actually see someone with the requisite expertise to say, this is my work, these are the risks, this is what would happen. COVID was a beautiful example, and right now we've had a spike in divorces. And when we look at the trends, these are marriages that are coming from the COVID era. We were stuck in the house together. We happened to maybe fall in love, and we thought we were in love when we actually were not in love, because we were stuck together, and the reality
is quite dangerous.
And the reality has come out now, and we have this spike in marriages. And I think also understanding marriage as a contract. Love is such a beautiful thing, isn't it, Kat? Yes, we don't think with our brains, we think with our hearts at that point. So I think really understanding it's a contract, and the effects of that contract, and the nitty-gritties of it will really help you as an individual understand. And even explaining to your partner to say, look, you're someone who's like this, I'm like this, I think this would be the best way, what do you think? Having those conversations, having them alone and having them together, and ultimately starting that journey. And when there's time for change, which is allowed, you change. And when you need to change again, you change, just like that. So I think let's mix the business with pleasure.
If the love of my life says resign out of community of property, can I get around happy? You think that I'm here for games? You think I'm here to eat your money? But I have every right to want to get married out of community of property.
Yes, you do. You have every right to the marital regime that suits you, and suits. You see, this is the thing with this particular one, right? Remember, I said it's sui generis. It affects everyone. A marriage, other contracts are between two people, and the people involved. A marriage affects, like I said, people who are old. A marriage has an effect on death. A marriage has an effect on children. there's what we call spousal support as well, where if we are married and you are cleaning at home, and I'm like, you know, there are those men who don't want women to work,
to do anything.
right? There are those. So if then now it ends, I'm now going to say, well, if you didn't stop me from working, I could have been Dr. Simaman, right? And then now the resentment comes in, and it gets very ugly, babes. I've seen it. It's ugly. It's not nice, but it's something that needs to be done, and done in the best way, and done properly, and the dynamics should be understood. Like I said, at the end of the day, we love each other, but there is an issue of power. There is an issue of risk, the economics of it. You can't ignore that.
I absolutely love that. Njira, where can we find you? If you're somebody that's listening right now and they want to call in for a consultation or ask for some guidance and assistance, what is your office number?
I thought I was the most accessible human being.
Shame, you really are. But for the benefit of those that you are on the other side of the world.
Okay, so you can start with Facebook. Mbewe Legal Practice on Facebook. Our office line is 316-5578, 316-5578. The cell phone one is 72485-212, 72485-212, or you can email mbewe@mbewelegal.com.
Thank you very much for joining us this evening. I think this is a beautiful example of knowledge is power.
Absolutely.
And sometimes we get so excited and we throw ourselves in things that we don't understand. And when it's too late, you wake up 10 years later with so much resentment, so much hatred, and just, but with conversations like these, we continue to learn that it's more than just an emotional connection. It's about law, it's about family, it's about protection, it's about the future, it's about what could happen in 10 or 15 years. And we really, really do appreciate the education, and thank you so much from saving us from what could be a costly mistake.
Yes, I want to see more people now. I don't want to be known as the woman who's divorcing the divorce lawyer. I don't know if it's that, as a married woman, I don't know if that's a nice thing. I don't know. My children will be like, Mom, you were busy, divorcing so many people. So I would like to see people, we need to know our rights. As a country, we don't know our rights, even just our constitutional rights or just basic human rights. I think we need to change. We happen to know American laws a lot. I plead the fifth. You seem to know you seem to know those rights, but we don't know our rights. So I need us to invest in our rights, and I'd like to see people before they get married, as an individual and even as a couple, rather than at the end. Either way, I'll have a job, right, Kat? I don't think I want to say, please just get married so that you divorce so that I have a job. No, either way, I'm going to have a job. If you're going to come to me and you're going to do your will, I'll have a job. If you're going to come to me and do your antenuptial contract, the job will be there. If I'm going to advise you in terms of what marital regime best suits you, the job will be there. And unfortunately, if it does reach a point where it ends, I think we'd even have a cleaner divorce as opposed to the divorces that are happening where it gets really dirty and there's a lot of resentment and hate. And you ask yourself if these are people who actually loved each other at some point and have children together. And we have children witnessing this, and there's a consequence to that. So I'd like to see people sooner rather than later. And yes, I may have my second dose of Katsi.
Yes, you will be back again. I think when you come back, let's touch on divorce from a law perspective, and let's also touch on something beautiful that you mentioned. What about the housewives and the house husbands in such a particular case? I think you'll be back again in the next coming weeks, and hopefully there'll be more knowledge for you to impart. Thank you once again for joining us. And BW, this is your sign to start making informed choices and decisions regarding your future. 8:01 is your time. We're joined by attorney Njiramanda Mbewe-Boatey, and she's going to be back again very, very soon. Coming up next, Adekune Gold featuring Lucky Day. This one is called Sinner.